you shoot me in a dream, you better wake up and apologize.
The Cinik Radio Podcast.
Hi, I'm Chad L. Coleman, Tyrese from The Walking Dead, and Cuddy from The Wire, and you are listening to the Cinik Radio Podcast. Here are your hosts, Cinik.
We live in great times because the internet has given the world a voice, but other than complaining, it seems like they have absolutely nothing to say.
Igrihe.
It's going to be a really good time.
And Ryan.
Batman vs. Superman is objectively better than Infinity War.
IG, did we just forget Kim?
You guys completely suck.
This is the greatest show of all time.
This is episode 118 of the Cinik Radio Podcast, and on this week's show, we review Good Boys and discuss all the big news out of Disney's D23. From the creative team that brought you Year One, Bad Teacher, and Hello Ladies, what's being built as the spiritual successor to Superbad hit the theaters last week and was number one overall throughout the box office, taking in $21 million. But can this tween comedy pack the raunchy donkey punch that most rated R crowds crave? Let's talk about it. Ryan, let's hop right into the teeth of the movie. Let's talk about the meat of the matter. Let's talk about the Beanbag Boys, Max, Thor, and Lucas. Besides having the world's worst gang name ever, did these three relatively newcomers carry the movie and their respective parts?
I didn't know about Max and Thor at all, but Lucas, if I don't know if you guys watched Last Man on Earth, but he was in that show for the last at least season or two. But the weird thing is, like, his character basically said nothing for like the entire time. Like, if he had a line, he had like one or two lines. So it's kind of interesting to see that, oh wow, this kid can act. Like, he's pretty charismatic. He's pretty good actor. He's pretty funny. I enjoyed him every time he was on the screen. To me, probably the most charismatic and interesting of the three. But yeah, they definitely worked really well, and I really liked the group and all the kids, and they kind of had an amazing dynamic and great chemistry together.
Overall, I think they were done pretty well. I think they were a little bit stiff at times when they were acting, and I honestly think that sometimes they were a lot more naive than I remember being at that age. I don't know. I think like maybe I was more worldly even without the internet. And these kids, with everything that they have access to now, they learn things so much sooner. Like, I, with my job, have to interact with kids, and sometimes the things that come out of like kindergarten age mouths, I'm completely surprised because I didn't know that stuff when I was that age. But by the time I was in sixth grade or going into middle school, I kind of had an idea what some of these things were about. And these kids were absolutely clueless. And I don't know if I found it endearing or if it bothered me. I'm still kind of waiting to figure that out. Maybe take another couple more times watching this.
Yeah, I agree with you there. It was kind of uneven in the sense that they knew what masturbation was, because we touched on the topic almost right away. We cut in Max is about to masturbate to some well-endowed ogre, but then we have to go on later in the movie to find out what kissing is on the internet, and that didn't make too much sense to me. But that scene made me a little bit nostalgic when you were young and you were kind of sneaking some alone time and your parents were about the house. IG, as a youngster, were you ever interrupted in your most intimate of moments?
Oh, I don't know any young man that wasn't. At one point or another, kind of get caught mid-act by a parent or a sibling or a friend or something. Everybody got caught at some point. Now, you may not think you did, but you did. And they know what you were doing. And your parents know that you weren't taking 45-minute showers. You were doing something else in there.
Yeah, 100%. We only had one bathroom in our house growing up, so that wouldn't have flew. I could barely find time to actually use the bathroom for its intended purpose, a shower or whatever. And somebody was always banging on the door with a family of 5. You get single parents and sometimes single female parents, single moms, and they don't know how to breach the situation that when they do catch their son, they kind of get weirded out about it. And it's just all natural. It really is. If anything, you make it worse by making him feel self-conscious about it, because then he feels that what he's doing is not right. And it's just the rite of passage, a rite of manhood. What do you think, Ryan?
You're right. I think there is kind of a stigma as a kid or as anybody attached to it. I don't know how I would have dealt with it if I had to. So yeah, that's some food for thought, I guess. But I think that is a good point, and you don't want to kind of make it seem like it's awful. Thankfully I didn't grow up Catholic, so I don't feel any shame or guilt with it. But I'm sure there's added aspects to it if your religion says there's something wrong with it. But yeah, I think there is a way to have a conversation about it, and I think actually the way his dad goes about it is pretty hilarious and kind of spot on, I guess. You got to let him know it's okay. I got you. I get it. Although then he makes it a little bit more uncomfortable and awkward by by sitting next to him. So made for kind of a funny gag, but he kind of initially kind of handled it well, and then maybe got a little creepy about it.
A little creepy? I think that was beyond a little creepy. Like, if you want to get your kid to stop doing those things in the house and just do what that dad did, and it'll stop immediately. No, that kid won't touch himself again until he's like 35.
Yeah, especially if you start yelling at it about it in the middle of Denny's at like a holiday breakfast or something like that. Just shame him forever, and he'll never do it again. One thing that did bother me about this movie, though, is that you brought up his dad. You brought up Max's dad, and that was Will Forte, right? That's his name. Yeah, criminally underused in this movie. He really can carry a scene, and we saw him maybe 3 times throughout the film, and that was just a shame because I would have liked to see more of him. And we got robbed of that last season of Last Man on Earth. I really wanted to see what was going to happen.
Well, I agree with you, but I don't think this was the movie to do it. I feel like it's one of those situations where he is so good and he is so funny and demands so much attention that you could easily see this movie kind of steer away from the kids and become the Will Forte show. And I think that using him sparingly was a good move in order to showcase the kids, because I just think he's too good for them to have given him too much to work with, and then again it could have just gone completely in another direction, and we'd be more interested and focused on Will Forte, which maybe might have been a better movie, but it's not the movie that I think they were trying to make.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And from the talk to checking out, even an anime porn. Kids today, IG, are more advanced at 10 and 12 than I was probably at 14 or 15. Do you think that awkward conversation about sex, about masturbation is kind of a thing of the past?
Well, honestly, I've got teenage girls and everything, and whether or not they enjoyed it or not, I had the talk with them and everything, more about how evil boys are and what they all want, because I told them I'm a boy and I know what I wanted at that age, and other boys now aren't different, so be careful. And
was it peanut butter cups? I know you wanted peanut butter cups.
I do always want peanut butter cups. But yeah, you still need to have the talk, because even though they know everything that's going on, they don't understand it like emotionally and everything. So there are some things that you still need to do as a parent that you need to talk about, because kids are still kids and they're not prepared for all those things. Like, they're getting excited, hormones are running rampant. But if you don't talk to them, they're going to end up in a really bad place.
We got the stigma because we got a little bit of peer pressure that our parents always warned us about, and it was right there on the big screen. Ryan, does it make me less of a man that the record of 4 swigs is probably 2 swigs more than I would take as a human, as a grown adult in my 40s? I could probably only do about 2. Am I the new sippy cup? And how old were you when you had your first beer?
God, first sip of beer or first beer? Because I say sip, I think my parents let me have like a sip on like New Year's when I was 10 or something. But like beer, probably 17, 18. I was like a late bloomer compared to a lot as far as that was concerned. But yeah, I'm with you as far as like my tolerance and desire to drink is not very good. So, I think if this movie hits it big, I could definitely see myself getting the sippy cup tag, because I'm a couple swigs, maybe a beer in, and I'm good to go.
Yeah, beer is completely wasted on me, and IG knows this. I'll drink cider. I'll drink anything sweet because I'm a complete fruit. Really awkward story. One time I went drinking with a bunch of guys from work. They're all pounding beers, and I had just seen The Big Lebowski, so I started ordering White Russians. And about my third or fourth White Russian, the bartender says, "You guys, another round of beer?" And he looks at me. He's like, "And for the lady, another White Russian?" And I couldn't feel like less than a man in that moment.
That's good.
Too bad they're so tasty. I like me a White Russian. They're so good.
Oh, nothing better than a Caucasian. Ryan, Lucas's parents dropped the A-bomb about divorce during dinner. It was abrupt, Do you think there was a little bit more of an appropriate way that they could have handled it?
Sure. And normally, like, there are a lot of moments that probably nitpick worthy, but I think this is one of those where, like, I get it for the purpose of the story, and again for the gag, why they did it. But yeah, probably not the best move, not the best time, not the best way to go about it. But it made for, I guess, a slightly interesting gag. But speaking of another fairly, what's his name, the guy that plays his dad, Rel, is another kind of underused. It's interesting because they had a lot of people who could have been utilized more. But again, we could have a movie about the parents maybe going on an adventure one day, and it would actually make for a great comedy. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it was not the greatest way to tell them, but I get it for the purpose of this movie.
For me, having that talk with me in any way would have been just a ray of sunshine on a rainy day. They could have woke me up and told me the house was on fire, and by the way, we're getting divorced, and I would have been extremely happy about it. And side note, my parents don't listen to this stuff. IG, most of the plot was driven by Max's crush. He's down with the cool kids. He knows French kissing is on the mouth. Being 11 or 12 and being that obsessed with the opposite sex, can that go anywhere?
No, not really. Not at that age, because the relationships are just all over the place at that point. You know, they take it so seriously. I love you so much, and we're going to be together forever until like 3 days from now when something else happens and we're no longer together. And that kind of stuff happens all the time in middle school, high school, college, adulthood. It can really happen, but especially on those younger kids, the middle school kids. People are trying to have the relationships and do everything else, and they don't know what to do. Like, I ask my kids who are just in high school right now, what do you do with your boyfriend? Do you hold hands and walk through the hallways? No. Do you meet up and kiss at lunch? No. I'm like, then why do you have a boyfriend? What are you doing? And, well, I just have a boyfriend. Why? Like, you're not going on dates. You're not going anywhere. And they're like, well, I don't know. Just that's what we do. And honestly, when I was that age, same thing. Like, I had a girlfriend. Why? Didn't walk through the halls with her, carry her books, do anything like that. Didn't meet and kiss after school. Nothing. Didn't go on dates. So why did I have a girlfriend? I don't know. That's just what people did. So yeah, it usually lasted a couple of weeks, maybe a month if you were doing well, but that was it.
Ryan, speaking of not spending enough time with the parents, apparently Thor's parents are nymphomaniacs because they like sex on the land and the sea. And they also own the world's hottest CPR doll and the most erotic home defense tools. I mean, could we have gotten to meet them? Wouldn't it have been a much better movie if we just would have spent a little bit of time with Thor's parents?
Yeah.
Sure, it would have raised the rating to NC-17, but they just seem like goers to me.
That was one of the more interesting things is like, what are they, like, what is the nature of their relationship? And the fact that, like, the stuff is just hanging around, literally hanging around for the kids to see is bizarre. And I'd love to know, like, are they just that, like, kind of liberal with, and did they give Thor the talk? Like, how young was he? Like, what are their, I just want to know. Yeah. I want to know more about, again, it's like, in a weird way, if we could have a movie about the adults and not have the kids involved at all. And just based on the actors and what we know about the characters would make for a pretty interesting movie.
Yeah, rather than good boys, I'd rather see awesome parents because the parents were a lot more interesting than the kids in this movie. Now, that's the weird part about it is Max really should be with Thor's family because he's all sexed up. Thor's family's all sexed up. They could go on these weird, exhibitionist vacations. It seemed like Thor wasn't interested in girls at all. He just wanted to sing his little heart out. God bless him. IG, we've all gone through this as kids. The forbidden drone. I break it. My parents are going to kill me. If it was so fucking uber important, why not lock it away rather than leave it on the charging station? Can that be considered entrapment by a parent?
Oh, absolutely. And especially that the kid could use his own phone to make it work.
He's already got it paired.
He's already got it synced up and everything. And really, so now we're going to just leave this temptation. And then tell him as you go, don't mess with the drone now. Well, that's just saying, hey, the cake that's in the cupboard over there, don't eat that cake. Yeah, that kid's going to eat the cake. I'm sorry about you. That cake is gone.
Yeah, it really bothered me a little bit. It's like, I need that for work. It's so important. Then lock it in a closet. Put it in a gun safe. Do something with it. Don't leave it out. And you're right. It was already paired to his phone. And I'm very pro police, but it annoys the shit out of me when I see them leave like a really expensive bike in the middle of, a not so affluent neighborhood. And then they just beat this poor soul who just probably didn't want to take a bus and just wanted to ride home. So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of that type of parenting. Ryan, we're taking a lot from our childhood here because that's what this movie touched on. And I mean, Molly could cause a fox to fuck a squirrel. Tampons go up your butt to stop babies from coming out, which were two of the funnier lines in the movie. But as a youngling, what was the most ridiculous thing that you believed that turned out to be not true?
Oh, man, I wish you gave me that question earlier because I could think about it because I'm sure there's something, but maybe go.
I'll jump back. Ig?
I don't really have one because my parents, although we're kind of prudish, were very willing to tell me about things, which helped a little bit. But I do have one from my mother who believed when she was young, and she doesn't listen to the show either, so this is safe. When she was young, believed that she would get pregnant from just kissing a boy, but you could stop the pregnancy by drinking a full cup of vinegar afterwards. So after her first kiss, when she was like 10 or 11, she came home and drank a cup of vinegar. Yep, that's my mom. She bit into it.
Well, apparently she wasn't aware of pillow pants and Listerine, right? I mean, Listerine should protect you against unwanted pregnancy, at least orally. For me, I was very young, but the stupidest thing I ever believed, and because my grandfather was a complete ass, was that when I was probably 4 or 5, and he told me that chocolate milk comes from brown cows. And I was stupid enough to believe it.
It doesn't?
No, it doesn't.
Shit.
I know. I tried it right from the tap. It was definitely regular milk. IG, Stephen Merchant might not be a pedophile, but do you think he's definitely the type of guy that would buy a secondhand use sex doll?
I think maybe. Yeah, actually, Stephen Merchant, sure. I could buy into that for sure. He just has that little bit of creep on him, whatever's going on. It's just, there's always a little bit there. Now, he plays it very well, and I think Stephen Merchant is absolutely hilarious. He's one of my favorite comedians. And in this movie, I think he just hit things right on the head. Things just worked really well for him. He was probably one of my brighter spots in this movie. And I mean, yeah, it was a little bit parts and things like that, but I really did enjoy it.
Well, he got the discount on the doll, but he didn't even get it home and get to kind of rectify the situation before it went flying out the window on the highway. And that was unfortunate. And it just makes you wonder if Ricky, because he's one of Ricky Gervais's best friends, it makes you wonder if Ricky Gervais is just a sick bastard that he picked Stephen Merchant to be friends with just because he was awkward looking and everything he does is just kind of silly. And I mean, they had that show, what was it, Idiot Abroad, where it was yet another friend that, you know, basically shouldn't be in society, and they would send him to foreign countries. Ricky's a brutal dude. Ryan, were you buying the kids' resistance to give the drugs back once the drone was destroyed? I mean, it wasn't out of spite. It wasn't out of anger. It was, okay, well, we're not giving you back these drugs because drugs are bad, okay?
Yeah, that was a little weird. Like, I get that Lucas is kind of like, you know, goody two shoes and came from a certain, you know, kind of has a very religious upbringing. And I kind of get it. But with all the stuff that they were up to, like, that didn't quite ring true for me. It was kind of like, yeah, I don't quite buy it. But, and it was funny because one of the few, like, you know, again, like with a movie like this, I'm not nitpicking too much, and I'm not going to, you know, kind of take everything with a grain of salt. But that was one of the few moments where I was like, I'm not buying it. Like, come on, they're kids. Like they're going to be singularly focused on what they're singularly focused on, and it not get, you know, the drug thing just didn't quite ring true for me.
Yeah, like they're doing the girls a favor by keeping the drugs and continuing to put themselves out. Yeah, that didn't make any sense to me at all. It was definitely a huge kind of plot hole where it was just like, I could see him taking them and tossing them down a storm drain or throwing them in the garbage or even handing them to a cop like, hey, we found these on the playground. But I didn't understand the kind of that whole situation. One thing I did like in this was Lily getting out of the car and chasing the boys was definitely reminiscent of Terminator 2. I love that scene. She was just trucking and they just didn't have the speed to keep ahead of her. IG, we get Lucas, the mama's boy, Max, the cool kid and ladies man, and Thor, the all mouth and no back it up type character. What personality was most like yours in the movie growing up?
Oh, I was a goody two shoes. Like I was too worried about what my parents would do if I wasn't behaving the way I should behave at every turn.
How did you end up the way you are?
I have no idea. I guess once I got out from under the wing, I just wanted to rebel as far as I could, and it ended up pretty bad because here we are today with Ig that's not doing so hot.
IG wanted to rock and roll every night and part of every day. Ryan, you work many, many, many jobs. We had the cop coming off a triple shift at one point with absolutely no fucks given. And it was probably my favorite scene throughout the whole movie was he just had enough. Give me the beer, give me the drugs, and just get out of here. Only to be thwarted by a personal device jammed in the doors. But as a strap hanger yourself, as somebody who's got their nose to the grindstone 24/7, could you completely identify with his I just want this day to be over attitude?
Oh yeah. No, because I've been through enough of those kinds of. I mean, I am now even like though I don't get up as early as I used to, but like I totally got that, and it was one of my favorite scenes because again, it's kind of subversive. Like you're expecting, oh, there's the cop, they're gonna get caught, something's gonna happen, and the fact that they out themselves, and the cop is so checked out that he just doesn't care. I could totally empathize with that. It was funny. There was not somewhat similar, so basically like with where I work, my biggest fear is somebody getting hurt. Someone gets hurt, it sets off a number of things where we have to call security, and then they have to call an ambulance, and then I got to write paperwork, and then I send, I got to write a whole report to multiple people. So my big fear is always somebody getting hurt. And so the other day I was in a meeting with my boss, and it was near the end of the day. So I'm like, all right, the day's almost done. And I heard like a loud grunt, but it was like as if someone was getting hurt. And I paused and like kind of almost counted down from 10 in my head, like hoping that was just somebody like doing a lift that they just a heavy lift or something, because I was terrified that I was going to have to work and do this paperwork. And thankfully it was a guy lifting an insane amount of weight, and he failed his lift, but he didn't get hurt, so I didn't have to do that paperwork. But that feeling of like, I'm done with the day, please don't make me do any extra work, I can totally empathize with.
So once you clocked out, if he walked by with half an arm, would you just kind of look the other way and just keep walking down the stairs so you could go make your train?
Possibly.
I didn't see anything. There's nothing going on here.
IG, not to show our age, but them crossing the highway to get to the mall, did it remind you of Frogger? And do you think you could have done that in their position?
First of all, yes, completely it was Frogger. And secondly, no, there's no way I would have been on that road. Like, there's no way I'd when Max just took off running across the road like a crazy person, I was like, he's going to get hit. He's going to die. It's not going to be good. And I'm sure that, well, I became athletic once I got kind of closer to high school. Before that, I was not at all athletic. And so, running I could run, but it was not fast. It was running as compared to a turtle, I guess. But yeah, I can't believe he did it, even myself, and made it across. But there's no way I would have done that myself.
I did something similar to this. Now, it wasn't nearly as busy of a highway, and it was at night. But my girlfriend lived in the next town, and if I was to walk around, it would have been a good 5 or 6 or 7 miles. However, if I got on the highway and walked the 1.5 miles, I could get over to the next town within, minutes. But the problem is that there was about probably a 1/2 mile bridge where there was no way to get off if a car was to come. It was very stand by me-ish. And I got about halfway across, and then the first semi came, and I'm clutching up on the railing, and I don't know for the life of me how I was able to survive that situation. But that kind of brought back some PTSD there, because I was like, oof. I just remember going, no sex is worth this. It's just not. So I can't imagine a drone being worth it either.
At that age, maybe the drone is, because if your dad's going to kill you and you want to live, maybe.
Yeah, that's true too. Ryan, one of the most unbelievable scenes, the beanbag boys agree to buy drugs for the girls in exchange for the drone back. They went and bought a new drone. They end up going roughshod through the whole fraternity with a paintball gun, living in reality, not to take away the fun of the movie. But with these little bastards, just get a wholesale ass kicking. I mean, there's no way that they take out a whole fraternity with just a paintball gun.
No, not at all. But that was one of the funniest scenes in the whole movie. I just love every moment of it. Like when he actually, does start firing, it was just like, I can't believe they're doing it. And yeah, like the whole time it's like, okay, this is bullshit, but it's hilarious bullshit. It's great and totally one of the best scenes in the movie. So I give him a pass on that.
Yeah, unbelievable as it was, the action was a little fun, and the reactions to everybody there. IG, one of the best lines in the movie was absolutely that you can suck my dick, and you could suck my dick. And Lucas is like, what about me? Am I just going to sit here? Is foregoing self-preservation worth inclusion, even when it comes to filleting a complete stranger?
Sometimes all a kid wants is to be included. That's it, and being a nerdy black kid, which is kind of what Lucas is, you're already kind of behind the eight ball, as it were. So yeah, he needs to be included. And even if it means filleting a stranger, yeah, include the guy. I mean, this is the age we're in, people. Look, Me Too counts for this kid as well. You can't just put him out because of he's bigger or he's black or he just isn't your type. If you're going to have the other two kids suck your dick, you may as well have him do it too.
I'm just going to move on from that. Max does a bang-up job destroying the house with the drones, knowing that we all have kids, Ryan, either kids or nieces or nephews. You came home and your son, your stepson or daughter did that to your house with a drone. How do you handle that?
I don't know. At what age? Because that was...
Well... I think they were 12 in the movie,
dead, right?
Yeah, now they're dead. No, not well. I spar with my stepson, so now he could literally get an ass whooping. But no, that would be like, I mean, that's grounds for at that age being grounded for a really long time. But at the same time, like, if I'm like, it's one thing if like it was in a lockbox in my room and he stole the keys and snuck in and took it out and set it up. But if you're gonna leave it there for a kid that age, something that's that cool and interesting and fun, like you kind of deserve it. So I'd like to think if I was that dumb and naive to think that he wouldn't do it, that I would at least kind of punish him, but also realize, a lot of this is on me. But again, if it's like he went out of his way to get to it and cause that kind of damage, then it's like, probably grounded until he's finished college.
IG, the Triple B break up and go their separate ways until Lucas becomes the voice of reason and gets them all back together. How many times are we going to do this formula in Hollywood? I mean, it's in just about every buddy comedy, is it not?
It is, but it's the formula that works, and that's what people expect. And very seldom do any movies go out of what's expected. And that's one of the things that really kind of hung me up about this movie. Now it's fun and I had a good time watching it, but it's just formulaic. Like nothing really surprised me except for some of the things the kids said, I mean, saying that a nymphomaniac has sex on the land and sea, that's kind of hilarious. And I'd never heard that before. So yeah, it was unexpected, but the whole formula of the movie, they're going to get in trouble. They're going to try and sneak their way through to get out of trouble and for it to fail on them in the end. And then they're still going to come back together and their friendship will be stronger than it ever was before. It happens in all these kind of things. And it's old, but what else are you going to do? Are you going to let them just drift apart right then? Nobody wants to watch that movie. I mean, there are some truly depressing movies that exist out in the world, like About Schmidt with Jack Nicholson is absolutely depressing. But that's not what people want to watch on a regular basis. Once in a while, maybe. But we need things that are kind of fun and bring people back together because it gives us hope. Hope that maybe even if, you don't talk to a friend for a while or you say the wrong thing to them, that if you really do care about them, or her or them, that they'll come back to you and that you can make it up and everything will be good because true friends are really hard to find.
Yeah. And if you want to be depressed, just go back and listen to the last 2 years of this podcast and listen to me try to host it. And then you'll feel better about yourself automatically. That's what I'm here to do. I'm here to lift spirits up. Look at this guy can barely understand English. He can barely speak. He definitely can't spell, but he's trying his hardest. God damn it. Given the fact that just before they went in, Ryan, they were calling each other Maxi Pad and Sippy Cup, the dangers of spinning the bottle with your friends. Did you think Thor was going to kiss Max's girlfriend even out of spite?
No, I don't. I thought because the difference would have been if, like, let's say Max was in love with the girl, and Thor was just this massive like horn dog, like, and that you just that it was going to be this fight between his own hormones and his kind of love for his friend or his conscience. And since they didn't set that up, there was no point to me that I thought he would actually go through with it, and yeah, I think they kind of built this tension, which I also kind of felt was a little unnecessary. It's like, we didn't need that. And yeah, it's kind of part of the formula, but at the end of the day, like, you could have eliminated the whole tension from them as friends, and the movie still basically functions the same, and it's still just as good. And maybe, you can still have the message of them, like, they separate a bit, but they still stay together, without having to have them like have this fake, breakup basically. But yeah, no, it's like, I never bought that he was going to, and they would have needed to do a better job setting up Thor's character for me to think that he was going to go through with it.
And not to disparage today's youth, but I think there's a better chance of Thor and Lucas dating each other rather than Thor stealing Max's girlfriend. It's just the feel I got from the both of them. IG, in the end, we see Thor's rise to the top of the high school charts as a singer, Lucas's ascent into the school safety team, and Max makes his way and finally gets to know what love is, and then gets dumped, but also gets the bottle open. Your thoughts on the movie, its the ending, and its rating?
I kind of liked the movie. I thought it was fun. I had a good time watching it. There was some good comedy. There was some good callbacks to other movies, like you mentioned, the Terminator girl running after him earlier. There was just a lot of things that are going on. But what I'm afraid of with this movie is it's not going to age well. So many things are kind of tied to 2019. And really good comedies have longevity. They can go. They don't put things in that are so topical right now that you can't watch it 10 years from now and still be as entertained. And that's where this is going to fail. It's done just fine. It's done well. There's a lot of fun things in it, and I'll watch it again and probably 3 or 4 more times. But it's not a top 10 comedy. The reason it did as well as it did in the movie theaters is because it's the end of summer and there's nothing else really to watch that people haven't already seen. That being said, I thought the end of the movie was fine. It was everything that was expected. But yeah, that's really, what's going to happen. Kids are going to come together, grow apart, maybe come back together, maybe stay apart. And it's okay. If there are any kids listening to this podcast, first of all, your parents should be arrested because you shouldn't be listening to us. Secondly, it's okay. It's okay if you have these things happen. Friends come and go, and eventually you'll get some friends that will just come and they'll stay and they'll be there forever. And maybe someone stop being dirty, you cynic asshole. But sometimes when they come, you'll get a friend for a long time and they'll be a friend for life. And that's awesome. And I'm tickled by this movie in that way. But, honestly, the kids' acting was a little bit off through most of it. It was fine for what they were trying to get them to do. And I understand trying to get an 11-year-old to talk the way they got these kids talking is a little bit off-putting, and it's kind of hard for them to act that way. It's not natural. So altogether, I think I had a fun time watching this movie, but it's still only about a 6, maybe a 6.5 movie.
Yeah, so I had a blast watching the movie. I think it's really fun. It's funny. I loved most of the gags. It doesn't reinvent the wheel. It's not trying to be anything special. I think, as you said, it's like kind of the spiritual successor to Superbad. And I think it tried to lean into that. And, it's not groundbreaking in any way, but at the same time, I didn't expect it to be. I don't think they tried to sell it like that. So I thought, I just had a blast. I thought the kids were all great. Maybe Max the kid was a little, like, kind of, he's played for the kind of straight man in the movie, and I think when you have a kid actor, it's a little tough and it kind of becomes a little stiff. Where I think Lucas and Thor both were a little bit more animated and a little more interesting and charismatic, but again, they all did a really good job for what they had. I thought they're kind of the villains. The girls were great. The parents were maybe criminally underutilized, but like I said, I don't think this wasn't the movie for them to be overly utilized. But I had a blast. It was fun. It was what it was. I give it a 7.5.
There was some classic lines in this movie. There really was. There were some very funny lines, and I thought the supporting cast was very, very well chosen. But cliche, and I wasn't buying anything coming out of the young actor's mouth. I don't think that they would speak this way in real life. It was like they were writing something an adult said. Walking into this movie, I had such high hopes for it because I love Judd Apatow movies, and the Seth Rogen stuff that he's picked up the banner and rushed with. I love those too. If anything, the world needs to start laughing at itself again and each other without getting offended. A lot of nostalgia with this age, with this period in time for me, but it did very little else. Most of the funny parts, were betrayed by the spoiler, and I frankly found the entire cast, the main cast, the boys themselves, unlikable and lacking charm. It was completely lost on me. From getting the drone back to trying to kiss his crush, I found myself bored and almost rooting against the Beanbag Boys through part of the movie. They did get part of this right. It might have not have been the spiritual successor to Superbad, but it was, in fact, Superbad. I give the Beanbag Boys and Good Boys a personal podcast low of 4. All right, IG, let's talk about what happened at Big D23.
So D23, the expo, all things Disney. And as we all know, Disney owns half of the known universe at this point. So that really means that there's a lot going on in the Disneyverse. We've got all of our Star Wars, all of our Marvel, everything coming from Fox. There's things going on. So we're going to talk about the things that we like about, which is mostly geek-related stuff. So let's start off with Marvel. They kind of expanded the things that they're going to do, because most of what they did at D23 this year is talk about what they're going to do with Disney Plus. Not as much about movies, more about what they're going to do with their streaming service that's due to launch in November. First, we have three new series coming out on Disney Plus, and the first one is Miss Marvel, where they have what is she, a Islamic young lady who inherits some power. I don't know much about the character itself, but watching Kevin Feige talk about it and listening to what he was saying, it kind of has me excited, and we're getting more inclusivity into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, even though this is on the TV side.
I don't know if I'm excited about this one, and not because of who they chose or the direction they chose with the character, because I've seen and read some of the comic books with her involved, and I mean, they're not bad, but it's just a retread of a retread of a retread. We're putting a new product in a different box and expecting it to be new. I would prefer that they would have took the Captain Marvel series into a TV show, because I'm worried that the next couple movies coming up for it aren't going to be nearly as successful as the origin story. So I don't know if I'm excited about that one. How about you, Ryan?
I mean, I'm excited about it. I think, Disney, I think, is making a smart move. They've got to, they've got to put out content for this. And, I like that they're being inclusive and the diversity, and, you know what, like, a Muslim character, or female Muslim led character, may or may not speak to me. And, I hope it's good. And if it's good, I'll watch it. But there are a lot of people that it will speak to. And I think it's important. It's just like where, Black Panther was something that was really important to me, and many people like me, to see yourself kind of represented is hugely important. So I think to increase the representation across the board, I think is a good thing. And, at the end of the day, it then is on, whoever the showrunner is and the people, whoever they cast and the whole production team to make it a good show. So, at this stage, I feel like we there's all kinds of comics and IP and characters that we're going to see people that we know of, people that we don't know of. And it still comes down to like, are they going to tell a good story? And if they tell a good story, great, I'll watch it and I'm on board. I don't know enough of the character to be super excited about the character, but I didn't know much about the Guardians or all kinds of different, characters that I've grown to kind of know and love. So, great on inclusivity, and hopefully, it's Marvel and it's Kevin Feige and it's the MCU, so they don't seem to be getting anything wrong yet. So, we'll see what it is. I'm sure, I'll watch it, and hopefully it's good.
I do have it on good authority, however, Ryan, that the Black Panther is at least 5'9". I don't know how well you identify with that, but
Well, he does look up to him. We'll give him that.
Also coming from Marvel Studios into Disney Plus is going to be a series with Moon Knight. Moon Knight's a really kind of a cool character. The problem with Moon Knight is we don't know if he actually has power or if he's just insane. But I'm excited. I remember reading some stuff that had Moon Knight in them. Like, I didn't read a lot of Moon Knight by himself, but team-ups with Spider-Man and other things when I was growing up. I saw a few of them, and I really like the character. I like how he looks. And if they kind of stay close to how he classically looked, I think it's going to be very cool.
The only problem with that, and this would be like them doing Punisher on Disney Plus, that they would have to tone it down so much. Moon Knight is more of a character that fell in line with what they were doing over at Netflix. He's dark, he's gritty, he extremely violent, and he's kind of Marvel's answer to Batman a little bit. Very, very similar background, very similar, but he's a lot more violent than Batman is. I don't know if this is going to work on Disney Plus because we're going to keep it G to PG, and I think that they're going to rob him a little bit of the essence, which is Moon Knight.
Yeah, I agree. So I know nothing about Moon Knight, but reading up on some of this, it does seem like that's the problem with Disney kind of and kind of having their model for what works in the MCU. And if you can't go, there's certain characters that kind of need that edge. And yeah, it's like Punisher needs that edge. It seems like Moon Knight needs that edge. A character like Deadpool, you could maybe go more comedy, but even Deadpool, like, I'm afraid of what's going to happen because they're probably going to go for PG-13, and it takes a lot away from that character. So I think there's certain characters that they need the R, they need you to be able to push the envelope, and I don't know that Marvel will get that. And then, again, can they tell a good story with Moon Knight that fits the MCU mold? I guess, I don't know, but it seems like if it's something that's important, integral to this character and to the stories that have been told about it, then maybe choose another character if you can't be, if you refuse to kind of go the dark and gritty route.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think that there's some possibilities of things going, and like some of the Star Wars stuff we saw, and we'll get on that soon, shows that maybe they have some ability for some of the violence and grittiness. So there is possibility that they can make this work and kind of be right on that edge of PG-13 going to R and make it work. Third one they announced, though, from Marvel is She-Hulk. And this one I'm really excited about because She-Hulk has always still been like almost like Professor Hulk, where she always maintained her intelligence, but still got the Hulk power, the strength, and everything else. And it really looks like if they cast it right, which I haven't seen any of the casting for this, that it could be very, very good.
Yeah, it's going to take a particular type of actress to pull this off. Maybe somebody like a Gina Carano, somebody that's imposing but can still act a little bit. And I believe that she's also a lawyer, so probably is going to need to be a little more intelligent to pull off the role. But I'm excited about that, especially since it seems like we're losing our Hulk out of the MCU. So she's going to fill in a need, that's for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's of the three, the one that kind of makes the most sense, and the one that automatically I'm like, okay, I'm definitely watching that. I think she's an interesting character, but you're right. I think they're gonna have to have to cast that well, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with the character, like how much, I mean, I'm guessing it'll be full CGI, but I'm interested to see how they go about it and make it look good. And, I mean, it looks like they're going all out for all these shows. So I'm definitely excited to see, it'll be interesting to see also, like, it will be like kind of a legal procedural, like how do they make this work? What do they do with it? But that definitely I'm excited about.
And the last thing I want to talk about for Marvel, we got a real small, short peek at the animated series from them called What If. And the first one they showed us a little sneak of is what if Peggy Carter took the super soldier serum instead of Steve Rogers. And they showed a little animated thing with Peggy Rogers wearing kind of a Captain Britain uniform with a shield with a British flag in the center of it. And the whole idea of what if we change one little thing in stuff that we already know, really has me intrigued, because they could go so many places with this series.
Oh, and we're seeing some of that now with things like the Spider-Verse. We are opening the doors to what if. I loved that comic book growing up because it just went all over the place. And I'm excited about the cartoon. And I think the cartoon is an appropriate forum for that type of storytelling because they can go week to week and it won't really matter what they do. You wouldn't be able to pull something like this off in a live action series. Right?
Yeah, I love the idea. And I love that they're going to get a lot of the original voice actors involved. But I love alternate history stories in general, whether it's real history or not. I love those types of stories and how creative you can be about kind of taking one detail, changing it around, and how does that change the world that we're in, or a fictional world. And so I love the idea of the show. I'm totally in for that. And yeah, of all the announcements for Marvel, that's probably the most exciting one because they can go anywhere with it. And so I can't wait to see what they do with it. Again, and the fact that they're getting and using the voice actors from the movies or from the MCU is just even better.
The last thing for Marvel that we want to talk about is the whole Spider-Man debacle. So over this weekend, we both lost and gained Spider-Man back. It was some weird push and shove match between Sony and Disney about who's going to have control and who's going to pay money and who's going to finance projects with Spider-Man going forward. And it was told to us, last Thursday, that we were going to lose Spider-Man out of the MCU and Sony was going to go off on their own. And then by Saturday afternoon, we had Spider-Man back and Tom Holland was on stage at D23. So I don't know what's going on here between these guys, but I am so happy that they got it worked out because, one thing that Sony has shown is when they go and make their own Spider-Man movie, they don't really have the formula right. They just want to keep redoing it. And I don't know if I wanted to watch Uncle Ben die again because that was probably where they were going to go.
Yeah, I saw that meme too, and that looks funny. This is in such limbo right now because there was reports that they had a deal worked out, and then nothing was ever said during D23, and it looks like they don't have anything worked out. So it all depends on who you listen to and what day of the week it is and what underwear you put on. So Spider-Man's not back in the MCU yet, but I'm telling Sony that you're going to lose in this deal because all these properties that you own that you're going to go do movies for, if they're not included in the MCU, they're going to make significantly less money. I mean, how much money would a Venom crossover, if he's a villain in any movie, make them? It would just be insane. Them going off on their own, yes, they have enough source material. They could keep themselves in movies till Tom Holland's an old guy. But I just think that ultimately it works if everything works together, and they didn't want to budge. They were giving Marvel like 5%, and Marvel's like, listen, we'll finance 25% of the movie. Just give us 25% of the gross, and they're included in the MCU. And they're, nope, not good enough. So who knows where it goes? And this isn't over yet. I mean, up until the point where they put the next Spider-Man movie in the can, it's not over. But I think Sony's making a huge misstep.
Yeah, this seems like one of those situations. I can't imagine it's not going to get worked out. But it does seem like it's just a logistical nightmare to try to for Sony to make this work without Marvel. I think, but at the same time, maybe the success of, look, at the end of the day, Sony produced the best Spider-Man movie we've probably ever seen, just a few months ago. The Venom, for all of its faults, was a pretty big hit, and they're taking it seriously, and they even got what's his name directing the sequel. Why am I forgetting his name? Andy Serkis is directing the sequel. Maybe they're in a situation where, like, yeah, we got this, and they'd be wrong, but it's just then, like, how do you make the whole character of Peter Parker in this world has been centered around kind of his relationship with Tony Stark. So Tony Stark's not in it. So what happens to the Happy and Aunt May relationship? Does that not exist? What about all the other heroes? There's a lot involved that you just have to either ignore or kind of wink and nod. Granted, the story is what they're trying to tell now may be interesting, and maybe it can be done without the MCU involved. But it seems weird, and I can't. If they do it, then I guarantee Venom will be involved in Spider-Man, and Spider-Man will probably be involved in Venom. They're just going to immediately try to cross those two over. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, they're going to work something out. It just doesn't make sense for them not to.
All right, so now I want to move over to Star Wars and the next Disney property, the one that's probably nearest and dearest to our heart. And first things first, we got a little bit of a sizzle reel for The Rise of Skywalker. A couple of new shots, a couple of new things to look at, a little new saying from the Emperor. So it's pretty much confirmed that he's in the movie because they put out a new poster as well. Now, it's not a full trailer. It's a lot of stuff combined with all of the other movies that existed, and it was still something cool to see, and I still enjoyed watching it. I still liked seeing it, but it really probably only gave us maybe 25 seconds of new stuff for The Rise of Skywalker. Now, I understand we'll probably get a full trailer sometime probably next month, I would guess, either late September, early October. But yeah, I'm ready. I want to see some more of this because I'm very excited to see the end of the saga.
Well, it was very well done, and we got this from JJ last time where he released a bunch of trailers, but it was only like the first 25% of the movie. Nothing major was spoiled going into the movie, which I loved because as we got closer and closer, I didn't want to know anything about it, so I started avoiding stuff. But he went out of his way not to spoil, which I absolutely loved. And I think we're going to get the same thing with this advertising campaign. I don't know where this is headed. I don't know what the Emperor is doing. I don't know where we're going to go with the story. And I'm frankly probably a little more excited about Mandalorian, but I do want to see the end of the Star Wars, the Skywalker saga for sure. What about me, Dad?
So it looks epic, which I liked, and I kind of agree. Like I at this point, it's only a couple months away. I'd rather just wait and, I don't need to be spoiled. I don't need to know. I don't need any more on what's going on because I've gone almost 2 years without it. So at this stage, I'm good to wait. But what we did get visually, it does look like epic, and it looks like they're gonna go for it. And I hope he takes chances, and that's it. I hope it's not a safe movie, and we agree to disagree on The Last Jedi, but I don't want it to just be kind of formulaic and simple and straightforward. I'd like it to take chances, but it does look epic. I like that the little tease of is she gonna go to the dark side, or what does it mean for what a Jedi is, or the Force, or it seems like they've got some interesting themes, and I don't want to know any more, and I'm excited about it.
So the next thing I want to talk about is just what Cinik just said, and I want to talk about The Mandalorian. We finally got an actual trailer for The Mandalorian. It's going to be launching early November on Disney Plus, and I, for one, am 100% in on this. Cinik said this first, so I'm stealing it from him, but I may be more excited to see that than I am The Rise of Skywalker. It looks so good. It looks so real and just gritty and wonderful.
I've never seen a TV show where the trailer looks like a movie as much as this show. I mean, from start to finish, my eyes were glued. This story falls under the timeline that I love about Star Wars. It's around the original 4, 5, and 6 movies, and it just looks so good. I mean, we always knew, and if you read the books, like IG-88 is a bounty hunter robot, and he's supposed to be quick and agile and a super good shot. And we actually got to see a little bit of that in this trailer. This show could go on forever. That there's so much source material around that time, and you can make it so much so interesting and so fun that I'm just excited about it. From the actors to the directors to the writers, Disney went all out, and I just can't wait. And we're definitely going to be covering every episode of that.
Yeah, it's like The Boys, as we talked about, is my favorite show of the year, but this is looking like it might give it a run for its money. I mean, I think we all want to love it because it's Star Wars, and it's dealing with Mandalorians and bounty hunters, but it does look amazing. And everything about it, about the trailer, about, just the set design, about the, the way the kind of stormtroopers are, what would happen if if your government, like has imploded and you're a soldier and all you know how to do is kill. Well, yeah, you become a mercenary. And so it's just kind of everything about this I'm in looks great. Can't wait for it. I always like to temper my expectations, but just considering the directing team and who's behind it and what they've given us so far, I have super high expectations.
I'm excited too that it's a weekly series. Now, of course, when it comes out, I'm going to want to watch the whole thing all at once, but I'm glad that we have to wait week by week because I think we're going to respect the product more. This Netflix way of doing stuff, I just got through Orange is the New Black in a matter of 2 nights because I have absolutely no life. But a week or 2 from now, I didn't put any of that to long-term memory, and I'm probably going to forget half of it, if not more. So I'm kind of excited that we get the chance to cover this week by week and just see how it unfolds. What do you think, IG?
I think that that's the only thing I'm not going to like because I'm used to streaming services where they put it all out at once and I can just sit and watch it and watch it and watch it over and over and over and over. And this is if they're only going to release an episode a week, I've got to wait just like every other normal TV show that exists. And it's going to kill me because I hated doing it during Game of Thrones. I hated doing it during Breaking Bad. All these shows that do that, I love it and I hate it at the same time because it gives me something to look forward to, but I really want to know what's going on. I'm so excited for this show. I've been like Boba Fett has been my favorite character, even though he goes out like a punk. He doesn't do much in the whole thing. He just looks really cool. And I don't know why he's been my favorite, but he's always been my favorite character. And I'm excited to see things from that kind of realm. Somebody that looks like Boba Fett running around doing some stuff. And we can maybe actually see what a Mandalorian is capable of doing. So the last thing we want to talk about here, and the biggest news from D23 all weekend, the thing that most of us have been waiting more than 10 years to hopefully be able to say, Ewan McGregor is coming back as Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's going to have his own series on Disney+.
And if you think about it, IG, back in the day, before things like Game of Thrones, TV was such a second-tier medium compared to movies. You'd get more content as far as hours, but not as much money was put into it. The quality wasn't as good. And now we're getting a TV show and we're just as excited, if not more excited, than if they gave us a full Obi-Wan Kenobi movie or origin story or whatever direction that was headed. I was extremely excited about this. And I'll tell you why. Number one, the guy wants to do it. Like, Ewan McGregor has been openly just politicking, and this is an accomplished actor that doesn't need the work. He's been openly politicking for this movie since Disney had taken over Star Wars. He wants this part. He wants to play Obi-Wan Kenobi again. He, unlike Harrison Ford, he loves the Star Wars fan base, and he loves the character. So that made me happy. When they introduced him, it made me happy. And coincidentally, I have a long commute, and Audible's become my friend, and they released a Kenobi book a few years ago, and I'm in the middle of listening to it, and I really hope that they actually draw some from that story. I can't, I want that to go 3 or 4 seasons, and based off of the way and the money spent and the quality of The Mandalorian, I have no doubt that this Obi-Wan Kenobi movie or Obi-Wan Kenobi series is going to be excellent.
Not much to add to that. I think he was easily, he and Palpatine are the best parts of the prequels. I mean, it's not saying much, but they're, really the 2 performances that were excellent and worked really well. And he's great as Obi-Wan Kenobi. And I think it's one of those things that we expected a movie, but a series makes sense. And he's a phenomenal actor. And, this is an interesting time period to get stories. And obviously they can age him up or age him down as they need to. But, I'm excited about it. I think we all are. And there's lots of source material to draw from for the character. And it's Disney, and they're going all out for these shows. So I can't imagine they're not going to, have the best writers, the best, best team available to kind of put together a great show. So I'm really excited about this. Maybe not quite as much as The Mandalorian, but definitely much more than the Cassian Andor movie coming or show coming out.
Yeah, I don't know where that's going to go. And the charm of that robot, or just the dry humor, the hilarity that he brings, I don't know how long that stays fresh and new. But IG, which one are you more excited for, the Kenobi or the Mandalorian?
Well, obviously right now it's the Mandalorian, but right behind that would have to be Kenobi, just because Kenobi's a cool character, and they really fleshed him out a lot in the prequels. And like Ryan was saying, he was about the best part of the prequels. So like getting him back and letting him do some things with some actual good writing, taking it away from George, thanks for the universe, George, but you're not a writer. It's just how it is. So getting some people that can actually write and give him some good stories. And I would imagine that the amount of time that he spent on Tatooine, maybe he didn't just stay on Tatooine. He might have done some other things. And that's it. You made it to the end of another episode of the Cinik Radio podcast. I'm Igrihe, here with Cinik, who you can find at CINIKRADIO.com. Also, we had Ryan, who you can find at thejimwits.com, and Kim, who you can find at KMCArtworks.com. Great artists. Go check out some really cool stuff. We'll be back next week with some new stuff for you, probably some news as well. Send your crazy news stories, any comments, questions, and concerns to us at CINIKRADIO@gmail.com. Find us on the internet at CINIKRADIO.com. Look for us on Facebook at Facebook.com/CINIKRADIO. Find us on Twitter at CINIKRADIO. And find us on Instagram at CINIKRADIO. You can also head over to tpublic.com, search for Cinik, CINIK, and get your own Cinik Radio podcast gear. T-shirts, mugs, cups, stickers, all the cool Cinik Radio podcast stuff you could possibly want. It'd help the show, and we would greatly appreciate it. Thanks again for all the love and support. Keep listening, sharing it with your friends, like, listen, and subscribe. And until next time, don't get captured.
Follow the podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and at CINIKRADIO.com. Available for download on iTunes.